Hello and welcome to my vlog about the principles of editing, the purpose of editing and the history of editing. First of all, we're going to be looking at the principles of editing. We're going to go through each sort of editing technique and discuss the pros and cons of each one. First one is montage. This is where a series of clips are played next to each other and also create a meaning between those clips, even if they are completely different. This can be seen in Shaun of the Dead, where they have a montage of guns and those kind of things. It's very useful for creating more depth of the thing, but also the con of it is it can also take away from the narrative of the entire piece. Right, we've also got jump cuts as well. This is where a movement is then a little bit of that movement has been cut out and then moved to the next bit. This can give the illusion of time passing and also just gets the audience straight to the action, so that's quite a useful thing. But it also can be kind of noticeable and it might not be quite as aesthetically pleasing as some other things. You also have parallel editing. This is when you show two scenes alternating between the two of them, one after the other, and it can come towards sort of a conclusion where both of these scenes meet in the middle. This can be quite useful for showing two things that are going on simultaneously and then bringing them together. It's quite good. I can't really think of that many cons, to be honest. It's pretty good, but it can also, I suppose it can take away from the story of one character. You also have the 180-degree rule. This is where one camera is facing there. It's usually used in conversations. One's camera is facing there. You can't go past 180 degrees because once you go past that, the characters have seemed to switch positions and it can give different meanings to the piece. Splicing. That is a method where you literally cut the film footage, take out a little gap, and then you can join two things together. This relates to cutting techniques as well. It's one of the core elements of editing. You also have dissolve, which is where one object, say a cup of coffee, turns into something else, say my hand. It's just a very useful thing to do. You also have fade, which can be fade to black, fade to white, fade to the next scene as well. If it's fading to the next scene, it's quite similar to dissolve, but it's not an object dissolving, it's a whole scene. This is quite useful for showing the passage of time moving on. We also have a wipe, which is when it goes to the next scene. Right, so cutaways. This is, say, let's give you an example here. It says conversation between two people, and they're talking about the weather, but they're inside, they can't see the weather. But then there's a shot to outside where they can see the clouds passing by. Well, show the audience the clouds passing by. So then that way, it's not actually in the scene, but it's away from the scene essentially. You also have POV, which stands for point of view. This is where it's looking through the eyes of the person. It's quite commonly seen in say shows like Peep Show. They use that quite a lot. It's quite good to sort of get into the mindset of the characters and making the audience relate to these characters a bit on a deeper level. A shot reverse shot is quite simple. It's quite sort of self-explanatory. There's a shot, and the camera comes over here. This is the reverse. It does the shot, and then it's back to there. You can see it in things like EastEnders when people are talking. But it doesn't have to be with people. It can be with objects as well. But it kind of personifies the object because it's commonly seen in soaps like EastEnders. You also have editing to rhythm. This is where, say, it's used quite a lot in music videos where things are cut to the beat. It also gives a visual representation of the music. Now I'm going to be talking about multiple POV. This is also seen in Peep Show as well because it shows both the characters' points of view, and that way the audience can relate to both of these characters, not just the one individual. It's good for the audience because then that way they can relate to both of these characters, or if there could be several more, not just 2, there can be 3 characters or so. We've also got something called seamless, which is where all of the edits are made smoothly. You can use things like graphic match as well, just to sort of blend all of the edits together. Right, purpose of editing. There's quite a few purposes of editing, such as storytelling, which can be seen, say, with your montage. This montage can aid to the narrative, as it can put more ideas in the audience's head of what's going on. It's not just what they're literally seeing. You also have tension as well, so slow cuts give more tension because they're like, oh, what's going on, what's going on? And then when the cuts start getting faster and faster, the audience can feel that something is going to happen, they're not quite sure. It's also relating to pace as well. Tension uses pace quite a lot, so the pace of the clips, how long each clip is the pace. And when there's a change of pace, this creates tension in the editing. One of the purposes for editing is for making a sequence, because you don't just want one continuous shot of what's happening, because that could take hours or days to watch the footage. So it also condenses it, and you can make a sequence out of these condensed clips to make chronological sense. George Méliès, born in 1861. He started making films in 1895. He is the pioneer of modern editing techniques. He used splicing to edit most of his footage. This cut the film clips at precise frames and was one of his greatest techniques. Another one of his techniques was dissolve. This was where one object would turn into another. He had many time constraints due to the period that he was editing. He overcome a lot of these by working incredibly hard and creating a vast library of films. One of these films was A Trip to the Moon. This used various techniques such as dissolve and stop time. He used filing cabinets to store a lot of his footage in. This took up a lot of physical space. He labelled a lot of his films by simply putting a label on the film reels. Thank you for listening.